Hey guys, Just here, and in this video, I'm actually going to be looking over what I think were the most underrated weapons in each campaign. Now, I'm going to be looking at, of course, all 10 of the campaigns. I'm going to be looking at the most underrated weapon in the campaigns. Now, I've done the most, the most overpowered, the worst weapon, stuff like that. But these weapons, I'm not going to say these weapons are. So first off, I'm not going to say weapons that are overhated. So you're not going to be seeing stuff like the Sten in Normandy or the Sten in general. You're not going to be seeing stuff like, I don't know, the PPSH, the PPD, or something like that. Weapons that people know are great. These are just weapons that I think people just don't know how good they are. So you're going to be seeing stuff, from pretty much every campaign here. And these are weapons I think that are, they just don't get as much love as, you know, they just don't get as much love as people get now. I will be including gold order weapons in this list, so you'll be seeing a few gold orders every now and again, here and there. But yeah, let's start with number 10 and work our way up, of course. Now, again, these are the order of what I think, the most. Some of these factions, they just had one or two weapons I thought were just slightly underrated. But the faction is as a whole or either they didn't have enough equipment, or the equipment was just underrated as a whole in the faction. Anyways, let's start with number 10. I swear I do not do this on purpose, but it always comes that Tunisia Axis is always at dead last for these lists. It was the best weapons, the most OP weapons. I mean, even some of the other weapon lists I've written up, Tunisia Axis is always appearing in dead last. So, what's the most underrated weapon for Tunisia Axis? Well, pretty much I was looking through a few of these. The Armagavir here was pretty. It was pretty, and also the Pavesi, I believe that's what it's called. They were in contention, but I'm gonna have to go with a kind of a joint here, which is the Carcano Model 38 with the 7.35mm chambers, both the scope mount and the non-scope mount. And to put it bluntly, these I would say are the second best bolt actions in the game. The only bolt action I think is better is the number 4 rifle, which obviously it's the number 4 rifle, you can't go wrong with that. Now, the main thing with this Carcano is that it's got a good reload. It's very quick firing for a for pretty much a bolt action. It's probably the quickest firing other than the number 4 rifle, and it's really good at pretty much all ranges. You can use this in close range, you can use this in medium range, long range. I love this thing. It is honestly a really good bolt action. Both of them are. Well, so yeah, I couldn't decide which one to put, so I decided to put both. They're basically the exact same, only one's got a bayonet and one's got a scope. Anyways, let's move on to number 9. Coming in at number 9, we've got Moscow Axis, and again, they've got some weapons that are kind of meh. The obviously the bushel here, gets pretty much, the Panther Bushel here, they get outclassed, but they're just there to have fun and, just kill people that are trying to take a point. I'm gonna have to go with the VZ. Now, the thing with the VZ is, when people think of the bolt actions of Moscow, they think the Gavir 33, they think the Kar 98K, the pre-war Kar 98K as well. No one really thinks of the VZ here, and that's sad because the VZ is probably the best bolt action for the Axis, if not the best bolt action in Moscow. Now, what makes this combined with the Dragoon? And again, the Dragoon gets all the love, but the VZ, which is the Axis' version of the Dragoon, gets none of the love. Now, again, the real reason it's coming in a little bit lower is that I think people do know that the VZ is good. But it's just that Moscow, you get so many rifles in Moscow that it's like, do you really want to pick the VZ over, say, picking up, just using the basic rifle, which will do almost the exact same job? It's still really, but what baffles me is that when people put the Kar 98K and the pre-war Kar 98K above this thing, and I'm like, you realise that this is probably a better version of the rifle and it's on, it's on a quite similar level, and it's the same price. But yeah, this thing is very good. Honestly, I really like the VZ. It's a good rifle, but yeah, it's just underrated. Anyway, let's move on to number 8. Coming in at number 8 is everyone's favourite campaign, Stalingrad, and it's Soviets. It's going to have to be the Thompson here. Now, the problem with this Thompson is not that the Thompson's bad or anything, but it's a paid weapon, and do you know what's not a paid weapon? The PPSH. Do you know what you pretty much get almost immediately after getting the Thompson? The PPSH. It's basically overshadowed by the PPSH. Now, again, the Thompson's a great SMG. Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic SMG, but you cannot have the M2128. The M2128 Thompson does not compare to the PPSH. The PPSH is just so good, which is why the PPSH is coming in. Well, not the PPSH. It's why the Thompson is coming in at number 8. Now, again, it is the only reason it is at number 8 is it is powerful, and people know it's powerful. They just don't pick it because the PPSH is just round the corner. Or let's say they've bought Stalingrad after, they maybe even after they've gone through, they'll probably pick up the PPSH quite quickly. And the PPSH is a free weapon as well, so yeah. Anyway, let's move on to number 7. Sticking with Stalingrad for number 7, we're going to have the MG13. Now, the MG13 is a very good it's a very good LMG, and you can use this pretty much anywhere. It's a very good LMG. It's pretty solid. It's fun to use, but there's a problem. The MG34 was unlocked almost immediately after it, so you're pretty much gonna I'm pretty sure these are both. I don't know if the MG34. Yeah, it's not even like, oh, the MG34 is locked behind the paywall. It's pretty much you get the MG34. The MG34 isn't even paywall locked. So, and the MG34 is much better than the MG13 in my opinion. The MG13 is great, and I do love the MG13, but I don't think the MG13 is as good as the MG34, which is why it's coming in at number 7. Anyway, let's move on to number 6. Coming in at number 6, shock, surprise, it's not. Tunisia allies are not near the top. It's actually going to be a rifle here. It's going to be the Enfield. Now, the problem with the Enfield is that it doesn't. The problem with it is the SMLE is just unlocked. You pair the Enfield with the number 3 and later the number 4, and you can see there's a huge difference. The Enfield, it's great, it's a good replacement over the starting rifle because it's got better bolt speed, it's got better sight, and it's got an extra round. But here's the problem. It's just not as good as the number 3 or even close to the number 4. The number 4 is arguably the best bolt action in the game, and the number 3 is pretty solid as well. And the Enfield just comes up lacking, which is why it's coming in at number 6. Anyways, let's move on to number 5. Coming in at number 5 is Soviet Moscow's weapon, which is actually the PPD 1929. Now, the problem with the PPD 1929 is that you unlock the drum mags too quickly in this campaign for this thing to really become useful. I would say this thing is probably a little bit more useful in Berlin than it is in Moscow. But it's still underrated. It's still a very good Soviet SMG in Moscow. The problem is that you get the PPD with the drum mag so quickly in Moscow that it's really not worth grabbing this. Which is why it's coming in at number 5. Which is why it's coming in at, at number 5, I believe this is. Yeah, it is number 5. Just have to check my notes. Yeah, so it's decent, but just not as good as the other options. Anyway, let's move on to number 4. Coming in at number 4 is Berlin. Now, this weapon I think just really gets overlooked, and it's the VG.2. Now, the problem with the VG.2 is everyone looks at it and goes, "Oh, it's a Volkssturm rifle. What?" And its sights aren't the best. But here's the thing: this thing's actually not bad. It's got a good reload. It's actually one of the better. I would say this is, other than the Carcano and the number 4, this is probably the third best bolt action in the game, in my opinion. It's really good. It's got a good rate of fire. Not as good as something like the Carcano or the number 4, obviously, but it's still very good. And it has the detachable box magazine, so the reloads are quite quick, quite similar to the Carcano's reload, being very quick regardless. But yeah, I don't think it gets overlooked, especially because I know people who just use the Kriegsmodell until they get to the Gewehr. This thing is still very good, and honestly, it's not that bad. It generally is not that bad. Anyways, let's move on to number 3. Coming in at number 3, I actually had a really hard time picking between these two. There was 2 weapons here, which was the M1 carbine with the grenade launcher and the BAR A1 for the underrated. And honestly, I'm gonna go with the A1 over the other one, because the grenade launcher carbine, it's got some use, okay, and I reckon more people use that over the A1. The problem with the A1 is it's just almost immediately, you've got the Bren almost immediately, and you have the A2 pretty much coming around the corner. So you're gonna get the A. So when you get the A1, it's like, why do I bother? I've already got enough. I've already got a bunch of LMGs that are pretty good, and I get a much better LMG around literally 6 levels later. Why do I bother with the MG5 with the Browning M1918A1? And that's the thing. It's just why? Like, now it's a good LMG. It's a 9 out of 10 LMG, but it's just outclassed, in my opinion, by most other weapons. The brand new use it pretty much all the time, and until the 1998-6 came out, it was the best, line holding weapon for the Allies, and even now it's still pretty decent. And the A2 is just brilliant. So, but the A1, it's not as good. And the A2 just beats this thing pretty much in every regard, which is why it's coming in at number 3. Still incredibly good, but just not as good as other weapons. Anyways, let's move on to number 2. Coming in at number 2, we've got, obviously, Normandy Axis, and I'm going to have to say it's the ZB. And the problem with the ZB is this thing it's just over, like, look at what comes before and after it. It comes before the MP40 and the MP35, which are, I would say, better SMGs. And the Beretta Model 38 and the MP43 come after it, and they're both better as well. So while it's a good SMG, it's just stuck in a really awkward spot. I think this thing would do a lot better if it was where the FNAB or the Beretta M1918 was, but I don't see this thing doing, it's not overly OP. Like, it's not, you see a 3-star weapon and you think, oh, these things are amazing. And to be honest, yeah, these three 3-star assault weapons are incredible, but the ZK, is just average. The ZK-383 is just average, which is kind of a bit of a shame because it's not bad, it's just average. Anyways, let's move on to number 1. Coming in at number 1 is Berlin Soviet's weapon, and I'm going to have to say it, hands up how many people actually use this before during the tech tree. It is the DPM, and I bet many people were like, what the hell was the DPM, as soon as they got this. And the problem with it is the DPM it's pretty much rammed in between the DP27 and the DT29. It's pretty much the same as the BAR, however it's even worse. The BAR at least has a different playstyle to the Bren, so you got that justification. The DPM, on the other hand, has the exact same playstyle as these two, so what most people would be like, oh, why should I pick a more expensive weapon? But when I've already got maxed out DP27s, which are very good. Not the best, but they're pretty good. And here's where I think this weapon excels. This weapon is very good when it comes to recoil management. This thing actually is better recoil management than maxed out DP27s, even though they technically it actually has worse stats than the DP27. For some reason, the recoil is actually it's easier to handle with the DPM than it is with the DP27. As well as that, it's actually just really good. It's a surprisingly good LMG. Now, the only problem is the DP27 is so cheap in Berlin, and the DT29 is almost around the corner and is a direct upgrade to it. The DPM, it's good, but like most players are not going to be like. For example, I'm just going to show it. I'm just going to even I fell for this. I've got look at how many maxed out DP27s I've got. I've got a lot of DP27s, but I've only got one DPM, which is the one I got from the unlock, and I've even got even more DT29s. You can see I've got a lot of DT29s. In fact, every soldier I've got has a DT29 at this point. But even then, I would say that this beats a maxed out DP27. It's really good. But the problem is that the DP27 it's kind of a bit, it's put in an awkward position, which is why it's coming in at number 1 as the most underrated weapon. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Leave your thoughts in the comments what you guys think is the most underrated weapon in the game. Join the Discord, obviously, if you want to, if you want to leave some suggestions, and I'll see you guys in the next video.